Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 74 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris. If you happen to miss the blog article that I put out last week, then you're probably wondering what happened to the other episodes at the beginning of the week. So I just wanted to clear that up real quick. We switched over to 5 days a week at the beginning of this season, and then after reviewing the stats, we were looking at it and saw that very few people were actually listening to Monday, Tuesday, and Friday's episodes. And so I decided that I didn't want to create content just for the sake of creating content. I want to give the listeners what it is that you want. And you seem to really like the Wednesday episodes where I'm interviewing veteran-focused nonprofits. And you also really like the episodes where I'm interviewing thought leaders for Thursday. So I'm going to keep those, and then I'm going to scrap the rest. So from here on out, you can expect new episodes every Wednesday and Thursday. They're both going to be interviews. They're both going to be the style that you like. So make sure you tune in and check them out. Today, I've got a super fun episode. I've got Joe Mornini with Team River Runner. I know you're going to like this one. I really enjoyed interviewing Joe, and I'm looking forward to getting out there and checking them out next season, seeing if I can help out in any way. Joe Mornini has spent a lifetime going from adventure to adventure. He holds a master's degree in environmental education from Goddard College and has been involved in outdoor education for almost 4 decades. A special education resource teacher and counselor, Joe is the coordinator of a program for seriously emotionally disturbed adolescents at Walt Whitman High School in Bethesda, Maryland. For 30 plus years, Joe's stress buster has been whitewater kayaking after school on the nearby Potomac River. Always the environmentalist and adventurer, Joe has motorcycled across the country 3 times, walked across Ireland, walked across the state of Maryland, and paddled rivers around the country. In 2004, Joe and kayaking buddy Mike McCormick recruited friends and local paddling businesses to support their idea to teach whitewater kayaking to wounded soldiers returning from wars in Iraq and Afghanistan at Walter Reed Army Medical Center. They named the program Team River Runner, and the goal has been to provide hope, health, and healing. Working in partnership with the Wounded Warrior Project and Disabled Sports USA, TRR is a nonprofit volunteer organization that now provides adaptive, therapeutic, and leadership training programs for OIF, OEF veterans on a national level. And one last thing before we jump into the interview, my voice, you'll notice, sounds a little bit raw. Now, this was recorded weeks ago, and I believe I was a little bit under the weather at the time, and you can definitely tell the difference in my voice. When I started to listen to it for editing, I didn't even recognize myself. So I hope that it's not too distracting for you, but I think it's going to be okay. All right, let's get into the interview.
Joe, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
I am a kayaker myself, so I'm really interested in finding out a lot about Team River Runner and what you guys are doing. So I'm pretty stoked about this interview.
Oh, that's great. I'd forgotten that you were a kayaker. What kind of kayak do you have?
I belong to a kayak club here. I'm in Annapolis.
Okay.
And so we've got a few different types, but they're all, pretty much the entry level, longer, wider ones.
Right.
But I'll take it up through Back Creek and go Spot Creek and the whole area around Annapolis.
That's beautiful boating up there. That's awesome.
It really is. It's so beautiful.
Uh-huh. Lots of wildlife and the sky, and it's just very, very pretty, very peaceful. But you can get a good workout too, so that's great.
Yeah, that's why I love it. Is I between that and yoga and running, my workout is covered.
Yeah. People don't think of kayaking as a workout, but it is.
Oh yeah, it sure is. So let's start out by kind of giving the listeners a short description of what Team River Runner is.
Well, Team River Runner is a 12-year-old adaptive and adventure paddling program that works with wounded or disabled veterans and their families all over the country to provide a paddling environment for healing or empowerment or connections with others and the environment and themselves. And it's just an opportunity for them to get into something active and be connected and healing and strengthening.
Excellent. We're going to dive really deep into that in a bit, but first let's kind of go over a little bit of your background. I imagine you have quite an extensive outdoor background, probably a little bit of kayaking.
Yeah, I've been kayaking for since I was 30, so 34 years now.
Oh wow.
So I've also did a lot of other types of outdoor stuff, mountain climbing, and rode a motorcycle cross country 4 times, and just a lot of outdoor. I've always liked being outside of a house and under the sky. So kayaking was just something kind of I fell into, and it met a lot of needs in my life. And I live in the Potomac, near the Potomac River, which is one of the greatest rivers in the world, and we like to call it the Aspen of whitewater. So having it so close and like to be outdoors, it just met a lot of outdoor needs for me.
Excellent. And when you started out kayaking, were you doing flat water or were you doing whitewater?
Well, actually, I was doing whitewater canoeing, open canoeing, but I have some significant difficulties with one of my knees, my right knee. I've had a lot of surgeries on it, and it hurt to kneel in a canoe and run whitewater in a canoe, which is a very elegant, way to run whitewater is open canoeing. And I saw a guy in a kayak about 34 years ago, and noted that he was sitting, and that's when I started my kayaking career, by just noting that I could sit in a boat and still paddle and be out on whitewater. So it's pretty much always been whitewater, but I've spent a lot of time paddling flat water, doing a lot of estuaries, peaceful rivers. I just love being out in a boat, just as like Pogo said, go out and mess around in boats.
Nice. And you've done that in different parts of the country as well?
Yes. Yep. I've traveled around the country, paddled a lot of different rivers, both whitewater rivers and flatwater rivers and lakes and pools. Now that we've had Team River Runner, we use pools. And so I've paddled a lot of places in the country. I've been very, very fortunate to be able to get around and see a lot of this country from the waterways. It's just a beautiful country that way.
And the Potomac is still your favorite, huh?
Yeah, that's my home. It's my river.
Nice.
I've spent many, I can't even countless times on the Potomac River. I had my kids out there, taking my family out camping on the river in our canoe. And so I'm all over the Potomac River. I love the Potomac River. It's a beautiful river. Yeah,
it really is. I did some rock climbing over there once, and I saw a bunch of kayakers.
Oh, okay. You were down in Mather Gorge, so you can see us all down below you?
Yes, that's exactly where I was.
Yeah, that's a very popular spot for climbers. We see them all the time. They see us. We talk to each other. We actually use the same parking lot over in Great Falls, Virginia. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's a community. It's a not a very large community, but it certainly is it's growing. There's a lot of people in the community, and a lot of new young people, and a lot of older folks like me. So it's a great community, very accepting community. It's a big part of the appeal of the sport for what we try to do with Team River Runner.
And speaking of that, let's get into that a little bit. Where did the idea for TRR come from?
Well, a good friend of mine, Mike McCormick, who was on the U.S. whitewater team, a slalom boater, actually was national champion back in, I think, the 90s. And I were paddling pretty much every night at Great Falls. And he had a job where he worked with President Bush, following President Bush around in public and taking down everything that Bush would talk about in public. And so he had been with President Bush at Walter Reed that day and came back, and I had just looked at the newspaper that day and saw some pictures of some of the veterans that were missing their limbs, their legs in particular, were in wheelchairs. And we started talking about it, and both of us simultaneously had always thought that kayaking would be a great thing for someone who was in a wheelchair. And so we thought, well, let's write a program up and take it down to Walter Reed and get some of those guys out of their chair and into a boat. And I'd been teaching kayaking for a long time. He was in the whitewater industry, so he knew a lot of people. I knew a lot of people. We figured, we'll get a couple of boats donated and go down and have a nice little program and, do something to help out the vets that were, helping us. After 9/11, I think we both felt like we wanted to do something like most Americans. And, we were struggling to find our niche, in particular me, because I was older. So we just kind of fell into it.
And so what does TRR provide for the veterans?
It's pretty interesting. We've sort of evolved over the years. The first, we have like four main values in our program that we try to embody in all of our chapters. And the first was what I did, which was a lifestyle. I paddled as part of a lifestyle. It was therapeutic for me. I spent 40 years as a special education teacher while I was also helping to work with Team River Runner, and going out kayaking in the afternoon was a way to blow off stress and to be connected out to the outdoors and to get some exercise. And so we wanted to have a lifestyle sport for some of these young men or women who had mobility impairments and get them paddling on a regular basis. So the first thing we wanted to do was create a lifestyle of healing and empowerment. And it wasn't long before we had some veterans at Walter Reed that were asking to participate in our sport that were not amputees but had other types of disabilities: traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, cancer from some of the difficult chemical issues that they might have encountered in Iraq or Afghanistan. So we had a lot of the veterans that were there coming to us that were not amputees. And so the next thing was inclusive. We became very inclusive, and that's still broadened today to where, we like, anybody's in bounds. If you're a disabled veteran or a family member of no matter what your age or what the condition came from, it doesn't have to be from combat. It could be from a car accident or illness or anything. We want to put you in a boat, butts in boats, and your family as well. And if you're a veteran that just wants to come and volunteer for us, they're in bounds too. We have a lot of veterans that, they don't have any particular health concern, but they want to help other veterans. And then obviously volunteers in the community to come in and say, we want to take part and we want to volunteer. And we have a million different roles for you. We came lifestyle and then inclusive. And those were two of the first main values that our program started to try to create in at least in the Walter Reed chapter initially, and then in other chapters as we began to expand.
Gotcha. So it's not just people that might have missing limbs or something like that. It's open to other types of injuries. And you mentioned family as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're inclusive. So I would say the majority of our participants come with other disabilities other than missing limbs or spinal cord or blind, even though we certainly can work with those. We've yet to find a disability, truthfully, that we couldn't put in a boat in some manner, unless they have a tracheotomy or they can't close their mouth underwater, so that they were to fall in, they drown. But we've had incomplete paraplegics, quadriplegics, quad amputees, blind, and then a huge number of individuals that came back with the emotional scars, post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, all of those individuals, as well as all of the veterans that just want to take part and be part of something to help other veterans that they know might have have served their country, and they're part of a brotherhood and sisterhood to help each other out.
Yeah,
so it's very, very inclusive.
That's very important too. Very important is getting the people together. The support staff, if you will, helping out.
Vets help vets heal. I think you don't have to go very far in literature to find out that veterans helping other veterans and being with veterans, they speak the same language. They all sign that blank check, payable with, up to and including my life.
Right.
They all know the difficulties they encountered in this huge military, organization that we have in this country. And so, they can help each other and help deal with each other and support each other through a multitude of issues. And so that's been a very important part of Team River Runner, is this need to have veterans helping other veterans and being with veterans in a fun environment. It's not sitting around in a rap group, although I've got nothing against that. That's great. But it's something where they can be with each other. They can, kind of relax at the same time, feel like they're accepted and supported from where they're coming from. And so it's been a remarkable journey so far, what we've been able to see happen with some of these folks.
That's one of the things that I keep seeing with different organizations that I'm talking to, is a lot more of them now are also including the family with what it is they're doing. And I love to see that, because, a lot of times when, especially veterans who have injuries, there's some, challenges for when they come back with the family as well. And sometimes, that injury might be something that's kind of coming in between them, where the family they don't know how to connect with the veteran, and bringing them all together and being able to just be together as a family and doing the same things and being out in nature is, I'm imagining, incredibly therapeutic.
We have so many different kinds of boats and stand-up paddle boards and canoes that, a family can go out and paddle with each other and have a great day and be part of a cookout. We do this open house adaptive paddling program on Sundays for veterans. Actually, anybody in the community who's disabled can come to that. It's just amazing to hear some of the stories that come out, kind of privately from folks. I remember this one particular therapist had a family out and they were paddling together, and then afterwards we had a cookout, and which we do every Sunday, and the veteran was cooking the hamburgers and laughing with his kids and out there, paddling with his kids. And the therapist came up to me, later in the evening and said, "That's the first time I've seen them happy and laughing together since I've known them. I've known them for a long time."
Wow.
So it was just, it's an opportunity to be away. You're in a non-threatening environment with a lot of volunteers. They're going to support you and are thrilled to be there with these veterans, and not asking them hard questions about what's going on with them, but just going out and boating.
Yeah.
But having a good time. I can't tell you how many times I've heard stories like that, or veterans that come out and say, this is about the only time I really come out. I don't come out of my house very much. They're very isolated. They're hyper vigilant. They feel, not connected to the community. So we reintegrate them with other veterans and with the community, with volunteers, in a very, peaceful environment. We had no idea, by the way, when we started this, that was what it was going to be. We were focused primarily on mobility and amputees, and it wasn't long at all before we saw the therapeutic value of it in a very strong way.
Yeah. I have a story as recent as yesterday where my daughter was throwing a fit. She's 7 years old, and she was throwing a fit, throwing a tantrum. And I said, "Come on, we're going kayaking." And she was throwing a fit the whole way out there to get the kayaks into the water. And I brought her in. We have the 2-person kayak, and I put her in there. And within a minute after being on the water, everything was fine, and she was extremely happy. She was giggling. It's hard to not be happy when you're on the water.
It's a perfect point. And I'll go back to saying, my special ed, times. I work in a program that worked with students and families that had behavioral and emotional difficulties. And so it was a very charged atmosphere all day. And so I would leave there with my head spinning. I spent 40 years with these at-risk individuals, and I love them all. But it was, it's overwhelming, the difficulties. And as soon as I got in the boat, in the water, in the Potomac River, that was gone, because you can't think about what your daughter was upset and angry about, and at the same time, be in a boat with your paddle, touching the water. The water is the great calming, healing adventure that, we're lucky. We have the one sport that you can do anywhere in the country, anytime, for free, if you got a boat.
Yeah.
You have a boat, took your daughter out, and it brought her right back to, her being a child. Just like you being in the boat brings you back to being young again.
It really does. It absolutely does.
We feel very, very fortunate to be able to do what we can do.
And speaking of being able to do this anywhere in the country. You guys have chapters all over the place, not just here in the Potomac area, but all over, correct?
Yep. We, after a few years, a lot of the individuals we were working with were leaving and going home. And it became apparent to us that we needed to, take a look at how we could create additional paddling opportunities for them. And adaptive paddling is still growing. And so we started to develop a chapter system, and we developed a very, I guess I'd have to say it's a pretty well-organized chapter system. And we now have 55 active chapters, roughly, in 31 states. Some of the chapters are in various stages of formation, but there's volunteers in 55 different communities in this country trying to get veterans to come and boat with them. So that's a very big deal to us. I mentioned there was 4 major values. Well, one of the values is purpose. So we try very hard, if the veteran is or their family members are really into the sport and really into coming out and paddling with us and seeing value with themselves and their family and other veterans and the volunteers, to give them leadership positions within the program. And so we don't pay them anything, but we give them a business card, and we give them, we train them, and we get them to be the instructors or the mentors or the outreach people or the, help us with some of the administration crap you got to do in a nonprofit. So we gear handlers, drivers, I've got a volunteer bringing my trailer back to me tonight so I can be on this podcast.
Nice.
And he's a veteran. So we give these veterans these opportunities to take on purpose within our chapters. And so literally, we don't really reach out to start chapters. They reach out to us because they find out about what we offer. We offer the training, the model, the support, the structure, the equipment, and we will help them, insurance, what they need to be able to start a chapter and get veterans and their family members out on the water. We'll support them to do. And so it's been a very organic growth, I guess, is a way some people put it. I'm not quite sure what that kind of worries me just saying that, but that's how it's grown. It's grown by word of mouth and people hearing about it. And so we've grown pretty large. Last year, we had over 2,100 paddling events in the country.
Wow.
With close to 2,000, veterans, unique and individual veterans, because we have a system where we track the metrics, who paddles, is he new or old, or she new or old, someone that's already paddled, how many times they paddled with us, that's important data to us, is how many unique and individual veterans are we touching, and we offer all of them the same opportunity to help us out, in their community, in their chapter.
So you get a lot of them coming back and paddling multiple times.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then as the chapters grow and mature, many of the chapters then reach into the community, and we want to have these veterans then helping people who are not veterans who are disabled in the community and be the instructors and the outreach and help this. We train them in adaptive, paddling, techniques and strategies and equipment. And so we have a lot of veterans that are now helping, kids that are autistic, kids that are blind.
Oh, wow.
Adults who are, in wheelchairs, helping them paddle, taking them out. So it's the purpose for the veteran is to continue to give service to their community, which is why they joined to begin with.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't go away when a veteran gets out of the military.
No, in fact, if you give it back to them, you can't believe what they do with that. They just love it.
Yeah.
To be able to help someone else helps themselves. There's data on that too. That if you're actively engaged in helping another person, it's really going to enable you to feel stronger about yourself and feel better about yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. And so for those volunteers that are helping you out, are there certifications and things like that they get? Yeah,
we really stick by the American Canoe Association, this over 100-year-old institution, which is all safety and instruction in this country comes out of the American Canoe Association. And they have a very structured program for certification of all different aspects of paddling: stand-up paddleboard, whitewater, flat water, open water, coastal water. And so and then there's also swiftwater training for, whitewater rescue, CPR, obviously, and Red Cross training. And we provide that to all the chapters to make sure that their participants that want to take on leadership, either veterans or volunteers, can have that training. And then Team River Runner, we have our own And we took it right from the ACA, an endorsement program. It's not a certification, but it's the same skills and criteria so that they can work on those skills and those needed training, modules within our chapter at our events. And then when they're ready to take an ACA certification course, they'll be ready to, it's like a pathway to certification.
Oh, great.
Well, it's important to us because you got to pay for the certification. We're very thin financially, so if we're going to spend money to certify a veteran or a volunteer, we want to make sure that they're ready to pass the course, because the passing rate in the ACA, it's not 100%, and we want to make sure it's 100%. We want to make sure that there's success when they, hit the water. They're ready. They feel like they're professional instructors.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So I was prepping for this interview, and I started going to the website, and I saw the On Me documentary. I'm like, On Me documentary, what is this? And clicked on it, started watching it. It wasn't 2 minutes into it where I was just like sitting there with my mouth gaping open and wiping away a couple of stray tears in my eyes. I was blown away by how awesome this was. Can you kind of give the listeners just a little bit about what the On Me documentary is all about?
It goes back to the purpose. One of the wounded warriors that I worked with and he's a good friend of mine. He's awesome. He lives up in Montana, and he'd been begging. We do these leadership clinics where we have chapter coordinators nominate a veteran that's participating with them. It's in a healing mode, a wounded or disabled veteran, to come and participate in this leadership clinic for a week and build leadership skills, build their paddling skills, network with other veterans from other chapters, and then go back to their chapter, more skillful. So it's a training program, but it's a week-long leadership clinic. And we have about, 8 or 9 of them throughout the country. And this one particular veteran up in Montana had been begging me to come do a leadership clinic in his home state. And so we did a leadership clinic there. And then about 6 years ago, we invited a couple of blind veterans to come and paddle with us. And we, kind of paired them up with a wounded warrior who had a traumatic brain injury. And it was very, very successful. And so we decided, let's just create this as a clinic. Let's just do this. Nobody had ever done it before. Nobody had ever considered whitewater in a hard shell kayak with a person who's blind, guided by another veteran. But it was successful 6 years ago, and we were like, let's play this out and do this again next year. And so the following year, we got 5 blind or visually disabled veterans, and we started, teaching them how to run whitewater. It took a week. It was on the Yellowstone River in Paradise Valley. We began to network with the community up there. The Paradise Valley community is just awesome. And got veterans that were nominated, that were cited, that were good paddlers, to come and be guides. And then we reached out into the, wounded veteran communities that we knew, and got some, blind veterans who were willing to try this thing because nobody had really thought about it before. And it's just wildly successful. We are able to take blind veterans who have never been in a kayak or even touched a kayak or seen a kayak from day one. And by the end of the week, many of them are running class 3 whitewater, guided by another veteran or a volunteer.
That's incredible.
And it's the only program like it in the country, and it's so successful. Then we had this knucklehead, Lonnie Bedwell. About 4 years ago, he came to me and to this out of sight clinic. It was like year 3. And he's blind. He was blinded in a hunting accident. He was shot in the face by a friend of his. And that's what the On Me video and the On Me book is, kind of based around Lonnie. And he said, I want to have a big goal. All right, well, there's a guy named Eric Weihenmayer, and he's a wonderful athlete. He was the first blind person to summit Mount Everest. I said, Eric's wants to be the first person to kayak the Grand Canyon. Why don't you be the first veteran to kayak the Grand Canyon? And Lonnie said, okay, that's what I'm going to train for. So it's a long story. I don't want to get into all the details. It's a great story. But the bottom line is Lonnie was the first blind kayaker to run the entire length of the Grand Canyon. Eric had run some of the big rapids, but he'd not gone through some of the other big rapids, and he had motored through all the medium-sized and smaller rapids, and he was planning his journey down the Grand Canyon for the following year. So we put Lonnie on the river, and Lonnie made it first.
Wow.
And now Lonnie is, I'm not making this up, he's actually on the Jackson Kayak professional kayak team. He's a pro kayaker. He's run the Zambezi. He's run the Grand Canyon now twice. And he is our ambassador and outreach person for blind veterans. And so every year he picks veterans that he has met in other, climbing or bicycling or running events. And I can't even tell you how many blind, I got more blind, I'm going to tell you straight up. I got more blind veterans that want to paddle with us than I have programs or money for.
Wow.
Yeah. And I've got
incredible.
so many that can run whitewater that it's just, and we're the only program in the world that does it. Nobody else does this. I mean, if somebody is and hears this podcast, call me, because I want to know what you're doing that's successful, because we want to make sure that we have best practices and the best. So we want to take them to the highest level of their skill. So if somebody else is doing, hook a brother up. I want to hear what you're doing. We want to spread the skill level out. We want every blind person that wants to try a kayak, we want to have that available to them. So
for the blind kayakers, how are they being directed? Like how do they find their way through the white water?
Well, we use verbal commands because it's just too horribly expensive to have these high-end, microphones and earphones. We can't afford it. There's too many blind people. So we learned to say on me, on me, on me. There's no hard consonants, so you can say it for a long time. On me, let's go right. On me, left. On me, eddy out right. And so we just kind of, and then we, each individual, we kind of give them a training on what an eddy or a peel out or a ferry is, and kind of, build them up from flat water to moving water to riffles to class 1 to class 2. And as they gain more skills, you'd be surprised just how much balance they have. If they have a voice, if they have a clear voice and some idea of the direction they're going to be going, and you've been very selective in the river that you picked. So we picked the Yellowstone for a reason, because it's got big rapids, but there's not a lot of rocks. We can get them down those rapids, and they style it. It's amazing to see what they can do. And in the community, there's the River's Edge, bar and grill up there. It does a big fundraiser for us. It raises the money for next year. We've already raised the money for next year's program.
Oh, great.
We started an out-of-site clinic in Key Largo. I don't have the funding for that now, but that's we do that in February. We have a out-of-site program in the Southeast that's going on roughly right about now. There's an out-of-site program in Michigan. I mean, I could have 4 or 5 more easily. I've got a lot of blind veterans that just want to keep paddling, because it's, as Steve Baskus, I am going to use a name here, he started a program called Blind Endeavors. Mm-hmm. And what he says is moving is living. If I'm standing still, I'm blind. But if I'm moving, then I'm alive. I'm giving myself the opportunity to go somewhere under my own steam. And if I got to be guided, so be it. But yeah,
Wow.
Just simply on me. And you could hear it in the Grand Canyon. I mean, there's one little video on YouTube of Lonnie running the Grand Canyon, one rap in the Grand Canyon. But we didn't think he'd make it. We thought we were going to pull him out of the boat for safety reasons and have him ride a raft in the big stuff. But the guy's got, ice water in his veins. He does. He never swims. He just stays in his boat. He rolls until he hears that voice, gets up, and then he finds the voice and paddles over to it. It's amazing. And we hope to have a trip in 2018 that we're going to take 6 blind veterans and as many as we can find sighted veteran guides to guide them down in the Grand Canyon. We're hoping to do that. We'd like to really, we want it to be really well known in this country that it's possible. We talk all the time about what's impossible. We haven't found it possible yet in Team River Runner. So we want to make it happen.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I was also, while I was doing my research, I saw that you had different events that you're running, and I'm sure that all of the chapters have different events going on all the time. But one that caught my eye, because it's here in the area, you have a DC Biathlon.
Yes, it's our signature event along with kayak football. But the DC Biathlon, it's a 1 mile flat water sprint. We provide everybody's in the same boat. They're like hybrid boats, recreation kayaks. It's called Zydeco. We have heats of 30 go out, or you can stand up paddleboard, and then you run 3 miles. And it's something we want the veterans to train for. We want them to say, you're training to be doing this, doing this race. Or hand cycle. We have a lot of them come down and hand cycle, so they can paddle, and then they can get out of their kayak and back in their wheelchair and wheel them up to their hand cycle, and they hand cycle. And it's held down at the Washington Canoe Club, which is just a wonderful organization that has hosted us every year for all these years we've done it. And we do it on October the 2nd. It's Sunday, October the 2nd. You can do it as an individual. You can do it as a team with another person running, and you boat, or you run and they boat. Or you can have a team event where you have 3 different times as a team time. So 3 runs and 3 paddle. You add the paddle times of 3 different paddlers and the running time of 3 different runners, and that's your team event. So that means you can have as many people on the team as you want. You could have 3, or you could have 6, or you could have 9, but you're the top 3 runs. And my team is a blind team. I have blind paddlers on it, and so we'll be guiding some blind paddlers, and we want to be the winning team. I got these blind veterans. They're badasses. They want to lay it down and beat some of these sighted folks that think they know where they're going.
That is pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
I imagine spectators could come out and check this out as well.
Oh yeah, it's October the 2nd. It's most of the day. We'd love to have spectators come out. We'd love to have some media. We never really quite had the media come out, and I think you'd find it to be pretty compelling to watch heats of 30 kayaks take off, and some of them have people in it that are not legs, and then just regular anybody can be in it. Anybody. It's a fundraiser for us. So we want people to raise funds, peer-to-peer kind of fundraising, and it's a really big deal for us. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year, and it's kind of the money that we have to be able to go into 2017 and offer more programs for more veterans and their families.
That's excellent. And so how would somebody get signed up for this? Is this on the website?
Yep. You go to teamofrunner.org, and you'll see it right there, and sign up. And if you want to be in a team, bring it, because we got my team, the Blind Bees, and I'll tell you what that means another time. That's our team name, and it was named by the executive director of the Blind Veteran Association, Al Lavina. He's on my team, and I'll be guiding Al, or I'll be guiding whoever. Lonnie may come out for it. So it'll be a lot of fun. It's a really, really cool event. Very fun day.
Excellent. I'm in the area, so I'm going to try to get out there for it.
Yeah, bring your daughter.
Yeah, she would absolutely love it.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'd love to see as many people as we can get out there, because it's gotten bigger and bigger every year. The whole paddling community comes out for it. It's just a really big. The Potomac River, like I say, has got a great paddling community, and with Walter Reed being right here, and all the service members that are in the area, it's just a great opportunity to support folks.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you ever team up with other organizations?
All the time. That's the 4th value. Thank you. You
nice.
made me right. That's called generosity. We really don't want to compete with anybody. We want to work with people. So organizations there's some great organizations that work with veterans in this country. Healing Waters, Project Healing Waters, Heroes on the Water, Ride to Recovery, Wounded Warrior Project. Anybody that wants to try to send veterans to come paddle with us, or that wants us to bring boats, if we have a trailer, many of our chapters have trailers. Have boats, we'll travel. We'll go out and throw them out in the lake or on the river, and take them out paddling. So we really do want to collaborate. The Team Red, White, and Blue is a wonderful resource. Has brought a lot of veterans to come and participate in our programs. So we really, we look to network everywhere. Like I mentioned, kayak football. We play kayak football. It's carnage. It's an awesome game. My team also has blind paddlers. The Blind Bees has its own kayak football team. We played in Canton, Ohio, the day of the Hall of Fame game. So we network with organizations that could bring us, paddlers for that, to come play kayak football with us. So, oh yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to try to, has participants that they think would like to come and participate with our program, bring it. If we have a boat and you got a butt, we want to put it in it. Butts and boats. That's our mantra.
Outstanding. So let me ask you, if somebody goes to your website and they're looking under the chapters tab and they don't see anything in their area, well, how do they get one started?
That's a great question. We have Dave Roby is our program director, and Dave Roby would start working with them, and he would send them a lot of material they could look at about how chapters operate. Basically, you want to try to, first thing you got to have, a team of volunteers, and it could be veterans, it could be wounded veterans, it could be disabled, it could be family members, it could be anybody, but you want to have volunteers who are going to be able to provide the program for the participants, which is, your veterans and those that are in a healing, mode that want to try to find some way to get out of their house or get more mobile or get strengthened. So you want to have your paddlers. They're your volunteers that can have the skills to be able to keep someone safe on the water and teach the sport to someone who they really want to work with them. You have your participants. You have to have a place to paddle. We encourage all of our chapters, if they can, to find a pool that they can use. And that's because it's a lifestyle program. So we want them to be able to paddle in the winter. We paddle year-round here in the D.C. area. We're at Walter Reed every Tuesday and every Thursday.
Wow.
I've been going to Walter Reed every Tuesday and now every Thursday for the last 8 years, since we started in September actually of 2004. So 5 o'clock every Tuesday, we're in the water regardless. There's always volunteers there. Sometimes there's no veterans, and then sometimes there's more than we know what to do with, but we'll figure it out. So to start a chapter, you have a place to paddle. You have your participants, the veterans. You have your paddlers, which is your volunteers to help, create that energy. Then you want to have providers. You want to try to network with a provider that can help you keep generating more veterans as they, go through, medical, programs, or if they're in college. We have some chapters that are in colleges. University of Maryland's got a chapter. Several colleges have started chapters up, and they use the pool, and they work outdoor rec in these colleges, because there's a lot of veterans that have gone back to school, and we saw a need to have programs in colleges that veterans could be with other veterans while they're trying to navigate the difficulty of being, they've had life experiences that these young kids coming into college haven't.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult for them sometimes. It's stressful. Plus, the stress of just, the course loads, and it's just difficult. So they need a place to burn off some steam with each other. And so paddling in a pool at the college is a great outlet for many of them. So that's pretty much it. You have those, and partners. When we mentioned generosity, if you can find other partners within your community that can refer veterans or refer children to veterans to work with them that have, disabling conditions, let's partner up. So basically it's a team effort. The name says exactly what we're a team. It's all about everybody working together to get butts and boats in a safe and, exciting and adventurous manner, whatever that happens to be for whoever you are. If you're someone who really needs adrenaline, we'll kind of focus you on whitewater. If you just need to get out for some exercise in nature, go out and paddle. You want to play kayak football? Hey, we got competition for you. You want to be in the Paralympics? Yeah, we're connected up with the, USACK, so we know how to get you trained up if you want to try to sprint kayaker in the Paralympics. We have all these connections we developed in 12 years, and we're just always looking for more veterans to come out of the woodwork and say, I want to do this.
That is outstanding. Well, this is a perfect time to get into success stories then. I know you already mentioned Lonnie. Is there any other success stories that you wanna kind of outline?
I could, there's so many. There's a young man out in one of our chapters who had a pretty horrifying accident that ended up with a terrible surgery that ended up with him being paralyzed. And he was stuck in his house for a long time and really having difficulty getting out, and just didn't come out until he found us. Started coming out and paddling with us. We have a special boat for him. And now this individual is a safety boater for us. Now he's still in a wheelchair, but he's able to get this adaptive boat himself in the water and himself out of his chair and into the boat and in the water and go out. And he's learned how, if somebody flips in the water, get them out of the water and into their boat and back paddling again. And he's wheelchair bound. I mean,
that's great.
That's amazing. Who does that?
Wow.
Our chapter down in Atlanta has a young lady who, and actually she's not the only one. We've had several paddlers with us that are missing all 4 limbs. They're quad amputees and they're paddling.
Wow.
And who does that? And when you get them out there paddling, sometimes you can't even tell, who's the person who's disabled. You can't. It's the great equalizer. To get someone out of a wheelchair who's missing all 4 limbs and out paddling a kayak, it's just amazing. And those are 2 that I can just think of so many different individuals that have told me over the years how much it meant to them to have some place to go where they could be with other veterans and do something fun and exciting and be with the volunteers and get back into the community again. The young man who was blown up by an IED has a plastic insert in it where his skull is part plastic. And we were a very important part of his recovery, to be able to come out and, paddle and no one knew what his issue was. He could just come out and paddle and have a good time and just laugh with people and keep healing as he's in his healing process.
Wow. That's got to do a tremendous amount for their confidence, which probably transfers to other parts of their life as well.
I can't tell you how many paddlers have started with us and now they do another sport. And I love that. I think that's awesome. Come out and paddle with us, build your confidence, build your strength, build that social connection skill that we all need to keep developing all the time. I mean, everybody has, a little difficulty going to a strange place, a strange crowd, new people, feeling a little like an outsider. And so we work very, very hard to have people be embraced when they come in and feel like they're right away as part of our program, of our group, of our family when we're out the water. It's the river community is amazing. You're a paddler. What happens if you go out there and you flip over and there's other paddlers? They're gonna come over and help you. Everyone is.
Absolutely.
Everyone is going to come help you. They're not going to ignore. Everyone's going to come help you get your stuff back in your boat, help you get back in the boat, help you see if you're okay. If you're cold, make sure you get to shore and get to warmth. If you're thirsty, they're going to have water. They're going to have what you need. And that's our culture. I think the veterans that come out and paddle with us see that culture. And, they just become part of it. We got a young man who was blown up in I want to say Iraq. And he just ran the upper Yak. There's not been a whole lot of paddlers that can run the upper Yak. It's one of the toughest, hardest rivers in Maryland, Pennsylvania area. It's a class 4, solid class 4 run. And this young man trained and trained and trained. And it's just, if you saw him, you would say, are you kidding me? He carries his own boat, missing both his legs above the knee. And you would have no idea if you saw him in a boat. No idea at all. He just styles. In fact, when Odek, my favorite rapid on the river is Odek, if it's up and he's in town, I just call him up. Hey, dude, Odek's up. Just what time? 3:00. See you then. He's a friend. He's part of our community. He's part of the river family community. And it's just amazing. When he comes to the river, everybody can spot him because it's very obvious that he's, been chewed. But not to him. He's just living life on the edge and paddling hard whitewater, skiing, hunting. He's my hero, man. He's a beast.
Wow. I love that. That's awesome.
It's just so freaking cool. So we're just, like I say way at the beginning of this, my little, blah, blah, blah. Just very, very fortunate to have found something as cheap and as easy and as fun and as adventurous and as exciting as paddling.
That's great.
Yeah.
Joe, I have one more question for you before we get into the final 3.
Okay.
What's next for TRR?
I don't know. It's been it's been quite a growth. If you'd asked me 12 years ago when we started this thing, we'd be where we are today. I said, it's got the potential to do some pretty cool stuff, but I would have never dreamed it'd be like this. I guess what's next for us is I'll tell you what's next for us is that we would like to see the day happen when it's normal for you to go anywhere where you see kayaks or boats in the water and you always see a wheelchair. and you always see someone being guided down to the water who's blind. And you always see family members with their, in their family group going out and paddling with their disabled father or mother or brother, or a double kayak with someone who's got, muscular dystrophy. So they're just out feeling the sun and the wind and the birds and just feeling it, so that it's normal. So it's not different. And like you were blown away by On Me. You're not blown away anymore because you see it all the time. You go to a ski resort, it's normal to see someone on a sit ski or see a blind skier. It's kind of normal there. You see it all the time. We want to see that happen in the waterways. We want to have people, if they want to learn how to kayak and they've got a disability, that they can go, there's an avenue for them to do in their community, and that it's just possible for them. And that the veterans lead the way, because that's what they want to do. We've got all these veterans in this country that want to give back to their community. So let's have the veterans, be part of that, the tip of the spear to, get their community, out and active and in the water again.
Yeah. Looking forward to that too. That's going to be great.
I hope so.
All right, Joe, we're ready for the final three.
I know. And I'm going to blank on all, I'll figure it out.
You got this. Okay. Question number 1. Who would you like to hear on a future episode of the Veteran Resource Podcast?
I mentioned Steve Baskus earlier. Steve Baskus paddles with us, and he started his own organization called Blind Endeavors. And I'm it's like a father with his kids. I'm not one disability or one veteran or one person volunteer over the other. But there's something about our ability to work with blind, because nobody had ever done that before. All these other disabilities, somebody had tried to adapt for. One-arm paddles and special adaptations for people with wheelchairs or missing limbs or, traumatic. But, nobody had done what we are doing with blind paddlers. And Steve Baskus is trying to do that for the blind community with all sports, Blind Endeavors. He might be a really interesting person for you to, because you can learn more about Blind Endeavors, because he's just starting. He's very passionate about sports and how it's helped in his recovery from when he lost his eyesight. And he might be a really good person to have on your podcast. Steve Baskus of Blind Endeavors. I just love that young man.
Awesome. I will definitely look him up and get connected.
Great.
Sounds great. All right. Question number 2. What upcoming project has you fired up right now?
I'm really fired up about kayak football. I love this biathlon. I'm going to go out, and if anybody thinks that they can beat me in the biathlon, so I don't run because my knee won't allow me to run. I'll hand crank or I'll walk the course. But my running days were over 10 years ago, but I can paddle, and I constantly challenge people to get in my heat and see if they can beat me. So that's fun. But kayak football is amazing. And I would love to see us have a national kayak football league, a full-on league. Maybe have the NFL kind of get involved with us and help sponsor some of it, and give some panache to it. It's just it's a great skill building, team building, fun activity that's just growing in our organization. And I guess I would just would be stoked to see kayak football become something that's, because you can play in the pool, you can hand paddle, you can play it year round. It's just so much fun. It's hilarious.
That sounds awesome. And if any listeners out there have any of the connections, this is kind of like the Kevin Bacon thing. If there's anybody out there who's listening to this and you have connections to somebody in the NFL, this would be a really cool event to see happening during the Super Bowl, where they go back and for commercials, they go out to the Super Bowl that you guys would have going on with kayak football. I think that would be really cool.
Wouldn't that be something? If like the day before the big Super Bowl, we had a Super Bowl of kayaking, and we did it under the lights at Oklahoma City. They got the Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation has this incredible venue there. Got a whitewater course, they got a sprint training, they got lights. How cool would it be to have the National Kayak Football League, Super Bowl be under the lights in Oklahoma City in the summer?
Oh wow!
And then you show highlights of that during the football game in the winter. I mean, it'd be really cool. So I'm really jazzed about kayak football, because it's just and like I say, skill building. You stop thinking about, I got to do this stroke, I got to do this turn, I got to lean this way, I got to do that. You're going after that ball. You want the ball, man, and you want to get at your teammate. And so you stop thinking about paddling, you just start paddling. And it's really, really fun, really awesome. So
very cool.
That's something I'm really jazzed about.
Awesome. Okay, this is the brain stretcher.
Yeah.
As if the other two weren't. If you woke up tomorrow and you found out that somebody made an anonymous donation of $10 million to your organization, what would you do with it?
Put it in the bank. I'd carve half of it off to be a reserve. I think we want to grow to where a reserve of some size, certainly not that size, would be appropriate. The other money we would use in the bank to have it draw interest. We're very, very low overhead, and the interest would help us pay for. Nobody wants to put money down to pay for staff. Our staff all work, at least 90% of their job is direct programs to veterans or to chapters or to volunteers. And so we're thin as crap. And, to be able to have the kind of funding to support, administration, a staff that could help me do more programming. We want to do more programming, for more people who have disabilities, more veterans who are wounded or disabled. And then have money in the bank so that we begin to grow to that point where I'm talking about, where there's, kayaking for people who have disabilities is mainstream. We'd have the funding to be able to support that with the training and the equipment and the schools, and to, use that kind of funding to certify veterans that could be, the instructors in these adaptive kayaking schools. In this country, we have a lot of adaptive kayaking programs. Do you know how many adaptive kayaking schools there are in this country? Schools.
No.
2.
Really?
Maybe 3. Yeah.
Wow.
So if you want to pay money and go learn how to kayak and you have a disability, schools don't have that wherewithal right now. So imagine what I could do with that kind of funding, where Team River Runner was like a broker for adaptive instruction and equipment to create these schools, so that people that, have a child or a husband or a wife who's been through some disease or accident, they want to be active and get fit again. I mean, we don't turn anybody away. We're inclusive. Somebody comes on our Sunday thing, and I don't care who you are. If you want to come paddle and you're in a wheelchair, we'll put you in a boat. But to have the kind of funding to be able to do that on a national, effort. Oh my God, there's millions of people that we could be touching, and the water's free. Once I get the boat and equipment and the training in there, it's free. Walk down to the river, roll down to the river, have somebody guide you down to the river, and go boating. And we'd have the funding to be able to do that. Plus, I'd have a reserve to be able to, in those lean times when, you need to pull a little bit of money out to not cancel. I cancel programs every year for not having funding. I canceled out of sight clinics for blind veterans for not having funding. I don't have funding for the February program, because I'm hopeful to get it, but, it'd be nice to not have to worry about that anymore. Kind of like Gump. I don't have to worry about that no more.
Well, hopefully there's a listener out there with $10 million, or maybe even less than $10 million, but they want to give it to your organization because everything you guys are doing sounds amazing. And for that person with the money that they want to donate, or for anybody else that wants to get in touch with you, what is the best way, Joe?
They can go to our website if they can't remember this, or my name's Joe, and it's joe@teamriverrunner.org. That's my email, and I always respond. Or they can just call me, 301-233-8882. It's the main line to me, and, I answer the phone. If I don't answer it, I'm on the water, and I'll call back. But, we're a grassroots organization. We have volunteers. Oh my God, I hesitate to even name one because they're all so amazing, and they're passionate and they care, and they're boaters. Many of them, those that aren't, they're gonna be, or they're happy to be helping us because they know that they see what we do. So contact me, and if you want to volunteer, you want to get involved with the chapter, you want to start something, we're growing, we're inclusive. We really want to try to reach out and touch as many veterans as we can, and have those veterans, touch their community with healing and empowerment. And we've done pretty good so far, and I hope we'll keep doing good in the future.
Outstanding. Thank you so much, Joe, for being on the podcast. I think that there's going to be a lot of listeners that are going to want to get connected to one of your chapters after hearing this.
I hope so. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to do this. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you.
All right. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to episode 74. I hope that you all have a great Thanksgiving, and I really hope that you enjoyed this episode. Make sure that you get over to the show notes at veteranresourcepodcast.com/074. You can find out more about Joe, find out more about everything that Team River Runner has going on. I'll have all of the links that you need to get plugged into the organization there. So again, veteranresourcepodcast.com/074. Thank you, and I will see you tomorrow for episode 75.